Hey guys, today we're about to roll the guards on this 1967 Camaro. Before we start, what we need to do is take a look at the paint and check to see, in terms of the restoration or repairs, if there's anything dodgy that sort of raises any sort of issues that I might think about that may cause a negative result to doing these or rolling these guards. So I'm just looking into this paint and the panel at different angles. I'm pretty sure that this restoration was rubbed back down to the bare metal, and I'm pretty sure that there isn't any bog. I'm going to test the paint thickness anyway, just to double check that. Now we've checked the paint, what we're going to do next is jack the car up. Before we jack the car up, I need to crack these nuts or loosen the nuts. After that, we're going to put some stands underneath just to reinforce it, so that way, for any reason, if the jack fails, the car itself isn't going to drop on its onto the ground without the wheels on and damage the car. Also, it's a very good practice for occupational health and safety to make sure that there are stands or other jacks underneath that, because I don't want to lose my own head either. So. When removing nuts from vehicles that have got the big deep dish wheels, especially when they're pretty highly polished, really good safety thing to do, that I like to do, is put my hand underneath, cup it like so. So that way, as the nut comes out of the recess of the wheel, for any reason, if it drops out, it's going to drop into the cup of my hand. As a safety precaution, I hope that when you guys are looking for your guard roller, that he takes as much care as I do. It's a little thing, but when you drop this nut onto this highly polished wheel, it does leave a chip.
That's good.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to removing the wheel, one thing you should definitely do, or I hope your guard roller does it, put your either your knees or your shoes underneath the tyre and straddle the actual whole wheel off, like so. What happens if you don't, quite often, is as you remove it off, the wheels are quite heavy. So sometimes what happens is the inside of the dish of this wheel actually falls onto the caliper or the rotor, chipping or denting the inside of the wheel. So I'm straddling from the bottom, which holds the weight up, and then with my hands, I'm pulling off, like so. No, I'm not pulling myself off, though. What we're doing is we're heating the paint. It was really important to heat this paint. So I've gone and set this thing to like 300 or plus degrees Celsius, and we're getting this pretty warm. I want to get this quite hot. It's borderline, look, it is very risky because you could overheat the paint, you could burn the paint, but it's also very necessary to get it hot. By making the paint hot, it makes the paint a little bit more malleable. You could almost guarantee that the paint will crack if you don't heat the paint. That doesn't mean that heating the paint will guarantee that it won't crack, but it definitely gives you a much better chance of a successful guard roll, and most likely you're going to end up with an outcome where it doesn't crack. And even if it just gets the odd split here and there, it's still minimal damage. We are talking about the damage control. So sometimes you need to go into damage control and reduce the damage that possibly could happen, rather than take it for granted and say she'll be right and let's just go for it, where that is going to be a result of a definite more severe worst case scenario damage. There are a couple of of methods in terms of professional guard rolling. I like to use my rubber mallet because I can actually, look, I'm really experienced with panel beating with my rubber mallet. In most cases I get a much better result because I have a lot more variables that I can control because I have the experience with the rubber mallet. When you bolt on a roller, you really only have one action, and that is apply force and move it back and forwards. Your angle is already preset, which you can't change in the middle of the roller in the middle of using the roller, and the force is fairly much constant as well. When using the rubber mallet, I can control the force, I can control the angle, I can control how much pinpoint pressure, when and where. So I definitely have, although it may look a little bit more sort of barbaric, going bang, 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 look, I definitely, for someone like myself who has the experience, who's done hundreds of guards, once you understand the variables and you have the experience, there are two, or a couple of methods actually, which you can use in rolling guards. I like to use the hammer most of the time. When I say the hammer, I'm talking about a hardened rubber mallet. Now that's a panel beating method. And some people will say, well, geez, that's a pretty barbaric way of doing it. Well, let me put it into perspective. When you're using a roller, let me show you a roller. That's a roller. We will probably use that later on. The thing about the roller is there's really only two things you can do with it, and that is apply pressure, which is constant, set the angle, and then ram it back and forth. That's not very skillful. That is really set and go. It's not the way I like to do it because I can control a lot more variables by using my rubber mallet. How? Well, I can control the angle on every single tap. I can control the force. I can control whether I want a larger area or a smaller area. When using the hammer, I'm only touching this much at a time. When using a roller, you're actually going bang, bang. That means you're putting the force across the whole entire area in one swing. That's not an awful lot of control. Okay, now that the paint's hot, I'm going to go ahead and start panel beating the lip of this guard and roll it up, which is why it's called guard rolling. Now, I do stress, with extreme caution, even if this is your own car and you're going to do a DIY sort of scenario, it looks easy enough, but it's just say it's high risk, and if you damage your own car, well, you've only got your own self to blame. But this is a customer's car. To repaint this quarter panel is going to be around about $800,000. So I have to stress and use extreme care when I'm doing this. I'm sure you can hear that the force I'm using is quite high. So I'm going to go ahead and start tapping slowly the rest of this. Okay, that side's done, so I'm just gonna bring the camera around and show it to you. Okay, for you guys who don't know what we're looking at, this is the lip of the guard. Okay, this is technically a 90 degree from there to there. Okay, so this section has not been touched, and as I pan up with the camera, you will see that this section here has curved and has kind of flattened. See, 90 degree taper there and then flattened in. So now this here is sitting around about a 45 degree. So I've gone quite a conservative roll, but you can see here that absolutely no cracked paint. Smooth, and when you touch it with your hand, you would actually think that this was done by factory. So there you have it, guys. I've just rolled the guards on a 1967 Camaro. I hope you enjoyed my video. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel or go to our website at www.autofxwa.com.au. When